I used to think that feeling guilty meant that I was doing something wrong, that if I was a good mum, I wouldn't want to work on my business. And if I was a good business owner, I wouldn't feel bad about it. Now, it took me a really long time to realize the guilt that I felt wasn't a sign that something was broken. It was a really clear sign that my boundaries just didn't exist. Hi, I'm Jane, and I'm the founder of Tuition, an online tuition business that supports students worldwide, and the host of the Tutor Edit. I work with tutors who are looking to build a business that works alongside their life rather than at the expense of it. So if that's you, then you're in the right place. Each week in the Tutor Edit, I share reflections on my own business and the conversations that I'm having with other tutors. Not to tell you what to do, but just to share what I've learned through lived experience over the last 12 years of building a tuition business so that you can make intentional choices about building a business that fits with your real life. In a previous episode, I talked a lot about the cost of switching roles. That moment where you transition from being maybe a mum or carer or whatever role you're in straight into making business decisions. And I talked about how disorientating that can be. And that seemed to resonate with an awful lot of you. So I'm back here again to talk about that in a little bit more detail because I want to go a layer deeper. I think that there's actually something underneath the switching that we don't really talk about very much, and that's guilt. And I don't mean the occasional, oh, I wish I'd spent more time with the kids kind of guilt. I'm talking about that kind of guilt that really sits with you, that really sneaks into your laptop when you open it after bedtime and really feel like maybe you're doing something that you should be hiding. The kind where you maybe tell people that you tutor just a few hours a week to keep yourself small, because saying that you're building a business maybe feels like you're betraying something that you set out to do. And that certainly showed up for me quite a bit over the last few years. It started showing up in really small ways, and I was really good at justifying it to myself. I'd say things like, oh, well, I'm building it for the kids and I'm doing it for the family and it will all be kind of worthwhile. The time that I spend now will be an investment. And that was true. And it is still true. It is absolutely still true. I'm still, my family is the main motivation for building the business. But saying all of that was a way of not admitting that I felt really torn and conflicted on quite a regular basis, if I'm being honest. That sometimes I want to work on my business, not because I have to, not because there was necessarily something urgent to do, but actually because I genuinely loved it and still do love it. And that desire itself felt quite selfish. I left the classroom to be with my family, and that worked out very well for us. I was given a much more flexible role, and that was incredible. But I also wanted to grow, and as my children grew older, I wanted to reclaim some of my own identity back, and part of that was working on the business. So I would finish a tutoring session, do all the kids' stuff. And then I would open my laptop and work on marketing or planning or building something. And the whole time, there was just this voice in the back of my head. I don't know if this happens to you too. Like, you've done enough today. You're working again. You should be resting. You should be present. Why isn't what you've done already enough? And this is such a common conversation that I have with other tutors, like particularly women, if I'm being honest, like as a bit of a generalization, particularly mums. Um, that guilt is almost universal amongst us. And it's just that nobody really says this out loud. We maybe talk about pricing strategies or finding clients or scaling. Do you want to grow a team? Do you not? Do you want to do group lessons? Do you want to create on-demand resources as a way to scale? But we don't actually often talk about what that actually feels like to build something while also running a household, while also living life. Maybe we're raising children. Maybe you're caring for family members. We don't often talk about that emotional tax. And this is something that comes up an awful lot. So I am going to talk you through some things that have helped me manage this. Maybe, I don't think that we're ever going to relinquish the guilt completely. But I just want to talk you through some things that have really helped me just to maintain some boundaries. Now, I want to be really honest here because this next part, it wasn't a single moment. Like, you probably aren't going to implement these things and it be an immediate quick win. It's not necessarily a dramatic revelation. It is very gradual. And it started when I realized when something needed to change. And the guilt really wasn't about the time. It was much more about clarity. Or rather like the lack of it. I felt like we were so busy at that time that the clarity, it was all about being in survival mode. And it's so common with tutors who feel this way, that actually when you take back a step back and start to look at your working pattern, and when I say working pattern, I'm not talking about like the number of hours that you're teaching, because we all know if we are established that actually that is only part of the time commitment that we're investing in our business. And when you look at your working pattern properly and crucially with honesty about how much of is going on, what I saw during that period was that there was actually no structure. There was no distinction. Some days I'd work, during times when we should have been resting. Some evenings I'd work after bedtime. Other times I'd maybe be sitting in the car replying to messages while I was waiting for my children to come out of their after school club. Some weekends I just drift into my office in here and come out 3 hours later, not really knowing what I'd achieved, just knowing that I had stuff to do. And the problem with that pattern is that you never know if you're supposed to be working or not, particularly if you work from home. So that results in us feeling guilty when we're working because we should be with our family. And you then start to feel guilty when you're with your family because maybe you should be working. You're never fully present in either place, and that can cause a real issue. And I know that this causes an issue for a lot of tutors. Now, the reframe for me personally, and this may be helpful for you, was this. The goal isn't to spend less time on the business, not necessarily. The goal is to make the time you spend very intentional, so that when you're working, you are working, and that is the focus. And when you are not working, you're not. You're with your family. You're doing the things that you want to be doing, the reason why you left the classroom. And I think when you start thinking about it in this way and just reframing, that guilt doesn't disappear, but it then becomes a little bit more manageable. Because I could recognize it and I could catch it and I could say, no, this is my protected work time. This is when I'm working. We've planned for this. Maybe, the kids are out or they are being taken out. This is my protected work time and this is my choice. And when it's over, when that time is up or when that task is completed, then I'm done. Because we all know that running a business, that being self-employed as a tutor, it is never ending. That there is always going to be something that we can do. It just becomes this amorphous kind of being that is totally out of control. And there is always something else that we can be doing. Now, from a very practical side, because I know that's what you're here for. So let's talk about, I'm not just going to talk about feelings for 10 minutes. We need to have some kind of framework. And this is the one that I found quite useful. And I still use it now. I have to use it a little bit less because I'm making much more conscious decisions. But splitting your time into 3 categories can be very, very useful. So personally for me, I do this in my planner so that I can just see at a glance what kind of day I'm in or what kind of hour I'm in. And the first one that I call it is like protected time. I suppose if we're using teacher speak, it would be like your PPA time, like your protected time. And this is the non-negotiable. The difference for tutoring for me is that the protected time are things like the school run, having dinner with family, maybe doing the after school clubs, having a chat with the kids. Bedtime is a non-negotiable for me. Now, these are the things that I know in advance I will not move, either because I can't move them or because I do not want to. And I put those things in my diary first before I put anything else in. Now, that might sound really obvious, but that's the thing that I got. This is the thing that I got wrong for years. I used to plan my work first. And that is where I then started becoming prioritizing work and trying to fit the family around that. I'd say things like, well, I'll work until 9 a.m. until 3 p.m. And if something comes up with my son, then I'll just handle it. I'll fit it in. I'll squeeze it in somewhere. And actually, that wasn't aligned. That wasn't why I left the classroom. That also meant that I was always half expecting to be interrupted. We're never really going to get away with that. But I was never really fully committing to that protected work time. And then I was never really fully committed to home. And when I flipped it, when I put that kind of protected time in my calendar and my planner first, that indicated very clearly that this is sacred. This is the priority. This is the thing that does not move. This is the most important thing. And everything else can fit around that. And that's the moment for me when things started to shift, because that meant invariably that work time wasn't left stealing from my family, because that had been the priority. It was the time that I had deliberately chosen to work. And that made it feel completely different, even just psychologically. So when we have that protected time and we know what our priorities are, there is something else that goes in. So the second category of time is this idea of like action time, of like, power time, if we're being really motivational, like taking action. And this is the most important one for your business. This is the time when you are at your best. So for me, it's mornings. I think much more clearly. I am much more motivated. I can do the deep work in the mornings. For other people, it may be late at night. This is about what works for you. So this is the time when I work on things like strategy, things like planning, things that I want to do to move the business forwards. It could be things like writing my emails. It could be writing the blog posts that we have. It could be recording podcasts like this one, which I'm doing early in the morning because this is when I'm at my best. And the rule with power time is this: I don't fill it with admin. I don't react to things. This is a very clear designated space where we don't reply to emails. We don't have any like quick check-ins. We are doing the deep work during this time, because this is protected work time. And this is really the thing that you'll find will move your business forward. And this goes into my calendar. And again, it may work differently for you, but this goes into my calendar as a meeting with myself so that I can't be interrupted. And I treat that as seriously as I would do with a lesson or a client session, with the tutors that I work with one-to-one. This is as serious. It is calendared in there as a meeting with myself, because I don't cancel it just because somebody asks me to do something else. I don't let it drift because I'm tired. It is calendared, it is scheduled. And for most tutors who use this system, this may be like 2 or 3 time blocks a week. It's not huge, but it's sacred and it is a priority. And this is where the business will start to move forward. It will give you that space, that clarity, that time to really think about what is aligned with you, your vision, your goals, and how you can start to take tangible steps to achieve this. Now, when we have those things in, we obviously need to fit in the things like emails, replying to requests, all of those things, admin. And the third category fits this. And this is where those flexible tasks come in. So things that you need to fit in, like everything else. So flex time. So things that can be squeezed in, like admin, emails, maybe social media, quick replies to parents, jobs that need doing but don't require your best brain. I don't do these jobs in the morning. I do them in the afternoon. And these are the things that can happen during the gaps of your day once you've prioritized the most important thing and then the thing that's going to move your business forward. So you could reply to emails in those 20 minutes before school pickup when your head is maybe somewhere else. Maybe it's when you're on your phone sitting outside waiting for your children to come out of their many after school clubs. And this time, crucially, doesn't need to be scheduled. It just needs to be contained. And that is the crucial thing with this, because otherwise it starts to leak into everything else. Now, I want to then circle back now that we've talked about those kind of 3 different using of time and how we can use those strategies, because we can't ignore the guilt. And I just want to return back to this because we opened with it. I think that's probably what a lot of you are here for. The framework that we've just described, that protected time, that action time, and that flexible time that we have, it's not going to make the guilt disappear. I hate to break it to you, okay, because I just think that we're hardwired possibly to feel guilty. I still absolutely feel it sometimes. I still have moments where I wonder if I should be doing more at home, even though, I'm very aware that we do a lot and that I am very grateful for those opportunities. But I still feel like I could be doing more. I also feel like I could be doing more in the business. I could be being more present. I could be being more available. And that guilt is always going to be there. But when it does, what this system does do is that it gives me an answer. So when that guilt does show up, I can look at my week and say, well, actually, no, I shouldn't feel guilty because I've mapped out my protected time. I've had my work time, so I don't need to be doing anything more on the business. I've had that time. I've used it, and it's been allocated. I'm done. I'm done with that part of my day now. And this is now protected time. This is the time that I have allocated to the things that are most important to me. I'm here with my family now. I'm not missing anything. These things can wait. And that is the shift. And that can really help just to manage the guilt that we can feel. Often as business owners, we can shift that guilt from, should I be working? Should I be doing more? To something that is more meaningful to us. We can shift that feeling of, I've done my work, to I'm now spending time with the people that are important to me. And that is really everything. That is the reason why we've left the classroom. That is the reason why we became tutors, because we didn't want to sacrifice this time and our energy working on things that no longer served us. The first question really has no answer, like, should I be working? You can spiral forever. The second question has a very clear answer, because you just look at your planner and it will answer that. You will know what time period you are in. So if you could take just one thing from this episode, let it be this. The guilt that you feel about working on your business is not a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's just a sign that maybe you're out of alignment and that your priorities are maybe out of order. It's maybe a sign that you haven't yet given yourself permission to build something deliberately. And you can build your business deliberately and also be the person that your family needs you to be. That permission, however, doesn't come from anyone else. It comes from you. And it's a lot easier to give yourself that permission when you can see it in black and white or on your screen that you've actually planned for both. And that can be really powerful. So if you found this episode useful, I would love it if you could like and subscribe for more support, strategies, and hopefully a little bit of inspiration to help you grow a tutoring business that feels aligned and sustainable with the life that you want to create. I've also put together a bit of a reflection guide, and that will help you to map out your own kind of time and priorities. If you are watching on YouTube, then you will see a QR code now, and feel free to scan and download it. And it will help you just to identify where your business is supporting your life and where it might feel like it's quietly taking over. If you're listening on audio, you'll also find the link in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you again for the next episode. Bye.